All right, well, welcome back, everyone, for our official last session, and our second, I guess, and we always do try to leave the best to last. So I do know it's been a jam-packed couple of days, and some of you came in for some pre-days, so we appreciate that as well. These events are always awesome, but I know a little tiring. We jam 20, 30 meetings in a day, so love the intensity, appreciate the enthusiasm and the participation. So we are really excited to have everyone join us here for the panel, and I want to introduce them to you now. And gentlemen, feel free to introduce yourself and a little bit about where you're from. You've met and seen, I think, nearly everyone so far. But Rob, why don't we start with you?
Still Rob Koplowitz.
Still? Good.
Same guy from this morning. Vice President, Principal Analyst at Forrester Research, focused on intelligent automation technologies.
Hey everyone, again, I'm Dave Marcus. I run strategic product engineering, technology alliances, and product strategy at UiPath.
Hi, Bruce Mazza. It's good to see you all again for Blue Prism, and I'm the VP of our technology alliances globally. Good to be here.
And Edmundo Costa, and I'm the Vice President General Manager for our Latin America business based here in Miami.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
My name is Gustavo. I'm Bizagi CEO.
Excellent. Well, again, really fortunate to have...
Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Richard. I hope I don't have to at this point, right? But no, really excited to obviously be here. Richard Duffy, Chief Revenue Officer here at Bizagi. So, gentlemen, we've got some pre-prepared questions that we got from some of our customers that we reached out to. But then again, audience, obviously these sessions always made better with keeping things interactive as well. So feel free to jump in with questions as we go through. So this is a slide that we put up yesterday. Again, I keep going to say last week or earlier this week, but it was yesterday, which really kind of talks to how we view the ecosystem here at Bizagi. And I don't know if all of you were here yesterday, but we kind of look at Bizagi as being the first enterprise cloud-native IPA platform. And some of the things we spoke about were how we're excited to have the native integration into all the leading RPA solutions, as well as BI and 130 other business applications as well. And I think this really talks a lot, Rob, to what you were saying, again, earlier today, about that it really does take a village to really drive this home for our customers as well. I think we still hear, if we're all honest with ourselves, some confusion or debate about the different technologies. Where does RPA fit in versus DPA? And is DPA the same as BPM? And do I really need RPA and DPA and equals IPA? And it feels like we're all back at algebra, right, in 10th grade. So I guess one of the first questions that a lot of our customers asked was, why is it that these technologies are complementary, or is there in fact some overlap? So maybe independently to kick us off, Rob, why don't we start with you, and then we'll come down this way, and I'll move things around, guys, to give everyone a chance.
Okay, so all right, we're late in the day, so we're going to get really honest here. So what happened to the term BPM at Forrester? I left Forrester for a couple of years. When I came back, they said, we want you to be the BPM analyst. And I said, I don't want to be the BPM analyst. I'm happy to cover the technologies, but not the term BPM. So Chris Mines and I coined the term digital process automation, but it wasn't just that, BPM, I think had some baggage attached to it. It was that we saw something fundamental that was changing in the market. It was the requirement for process automation, and that requirement for process automation was actually becoming very acute. And we wanted to actually separate the term from what was previously something that was connoted with very large, very complex processes. And we think that the landscape had changed dramatically. I think what's changed in the 3 years since then are the complementary technologies that have come to bear upon it. The really tight integration with rules and with decisioning. And now I think with RPA, and I think the emergence of the intelligent automation terminology, that context is really important. I know Dave said it, I think others said it on the stage as well. We really need that center of excellence. We need that governance to take place at the level of intelligent automation and above the technology choices, because, Richard, they do overlap. There are absolutely instances where there's going to be overlap, and it's going to be your job as practitioners to figure out what the governance is within your organization to make sure that you're best using these technologies, even though they're complementary.
Great, Rob. And now, Dave, interestingly enough for you, I mean, you've been on nearly all sides of the fence. Microsoft, DPA, and now RPA. You've kind of nearly come full circle, so I mean, you must have some good insights into this.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I'll echo what Rob is saying. I think that, you know, if you look at the need from an automation perspective in general, it is so broad and so all-encompassing and covers the ability or the need to really solve tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of automation problems. It isn't focused around solving the top 2% of high-value processes. Not anymore. It might have been 20 years ago. It isn't today. And in addition to that, the complexity of siloed solutions that are actually available today, even though they may be sort of pervasively accessible through APIs, as an example, makes things even more challenging. It's really interesting that when we talk to customers today, you know, people are no longer deploying one ERP solution, one CRM solution. People are deploying, you know, 50 project management solutions, and they're all cloud-centric, and they're all over the place, and that becomes the challenge. And one of the things we're seeing right now, it's a sort of a new term we're coining, this idea that the automation is the application. And that at the end of the day, you know, I have this philosophy that says very simply that, you know, there's an app for that, for everything.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, people want to think about their life that way, irrespective of the underlying technologies. And so we think about this as being able to say that a range of technologies that support intelligent automation are all about the next generation applications for the business. And you know, what that means is that you need to choose the right things for the right job. I mean, it really does come down to that.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Dave. Bruce?
You know, I was at a large banking customer last week, and I asked them what their perspective was on intelligent automation, and they said, you know, we have over 500 applications that we manage in our business, and it's because of this democratization of technology that those applications end up being in the enterprise. It's because of mergers and acquisitions, and that level of complexity is really driving people to say they need a scalable platform. And so I think the most important thing in this picture that can be talked about here is that the technology ecosystem is very real to realize this capability, and you need to have a scalable platform to deal with that. The governance that you mentioned is incredibly important because that platform can be used for anything, right? And that level of automation needs to be governed by the highest value, best value proposition for those enterprises. But that capability will live on for a long time because the perfect end-to-end single application just doesn't exist anymore. Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce. Edmundo?
Where are they so complementary? I do think that they actually, while there is overlap, they do perform some very important and distinct functions in the stack. And I think that there is a role for each of the technologies and you know, different different layers in the stack. I think what makes these so complementary is, you know, we've got I think all the vendors today have you know, very good APIs. They've got, you know, very well documented mechanisms. In many cases, there's plugins and there's you know, mechanisms that enable very easy interconnection. So that's why I think that you know, all of you are going to be able to benefit from a very accelerated use of these technologies in a very complementary way. So.
And Gustavo, let me just add a little bit for you. You know, you started this journey a long time ago in junior school, obviously. And, you know, I know when we've been talking about RPA, DPA, IPA, you actually were looking at elements of RPA when you built Bizagi the first time around. So what's your take on where these technologies come together and overlap?
Well, first of all, I say it from the customer's perspective, and you saw so many use cases during these 2 days. We both technologies share the word process, so clearly we are in the process space. but I see them completely as complementary technologies. It was interesting talking to me here, the CEO from AutomationAnywhere, and basically he started the company almost at the same time we started the Bizagi approach. We went more into the end-to-end automation concept, while he decided to go specifically into the task automation at the time, and of course, it has developed a lot ever since. But both technologies, because they are so ambitious, I mean, trying to digitize any process for any industry is a huge promise, and it has taken us 17 years to build a platform that delivers upon that promise. And the same in the case of AutomationAnywhere. It has taken AutomationAnywhere 17 years to get to that point. So both are very sophisticated technological stacks. And when you bring them together, you deliver so much value to the customer. And I think that's the main aspect.
So without being cliche, it's kind of the old adage, 1 + 1 really does equal 3 in this scenario. I think we would all agree.
Yeah.
Good. So one of the next questions we had, I'm not going to ask the panel for an answer because I think we would all know what it is. So the next question was, can organizations survive without delivering IPA? So versus answering that, because I'd be worried if any of us said, yes, they can survive. And I think we already have general consensus from everyone in this room, or they also wouldn't be here. So for me, let's skip that question, but maybe more kind of double click down on it, which is, so we all get it. We all know that automation is the #1 disruptive force. You know, if Amazon gets in your business, get out, as we heard from Rob, and we have to do this or we die. So what's stopping everyone in this room? What are some of the barriers, and how, whether it's your individual organization or conceptually, how can you and how can we together, because just to kind of add to that, some of the comments that have been made to some of us in meetings is our joint customers are looking to us to all work together. So let's go back down this way. I mean, so Gustavo, what's your take on that? So I mean, again, just to recap, we know that we have to do it, but there are going to be challenges. What do you see the biggest challenges, and what can we all do together?
I think the biggest challenge looking back has been the cultural challenge. I mean, when you digitize a process, you go across all those silos with all these different interests. So there is pain in engaging these technologies within the organizations. Now, when you have something that is painful, you will kick it down the road as long as you can, until it becomes a survival issue. So if you have a little bit of pain, but it's not threatening, then you may postpone the visit to the doctor. But if you know that pain can kill you, then you act. And that's the biggest change in the market, that the disruptors are threatening all these existing companies. So it's not a pain you can ignore any longer. No matter how big the pain, you need to go through the surgery.
Interesting. So culture, which Andy spoke about yesterday, right? Combining that human performance with technology, and then I think Rob, culture was on your list this morning, right? So
let's drill in on that. I think you're absolutely right. I think that the challenge for our customers, and I think it's probably for everybody on the stage, is, how do I drive from being a starter, small, to scaling up and then transforming, right? How do I drive that life cycle, that automation life cycle? And I think, these elements are probably been discussed here over the last couple of days, but first is you need to have an executive vision and ambition to drive a transformation. So that's first and foremost, because a lot of us start these journeys with the idea, well, I'm just going to automate a small functional area within a business unit. So you've got to have an executive level sponsorship with the ability to drive a vision and an ambition to do something that is scalable and transformative. So that's number one. Number two is all the governance things that we have all talked about, which is whether you call it a center of excellence or whatever terminology you want to use, but there has to be a governance to support that vision and ambition, okay, to do something that's more than just starting. And then the third is, you've got to be able to scale up, so you've got to be able to democratize, and this is where the cultural thing is. And I think that word can be misused, so I'll be very specific about what we think democratization means. And it means that people throughout your organization, throughout the different geographies, throughout the different business units, throughout the different functional departments, can understand the power of the tool to transform their work, that they can actually engage and be part of the process. And actually, instead of feeling threatened by the wave of automation that's going to occur in their company, they embrace it as a way to make their work more valuable, okay, to let them be more productive and more useful. Nobody enjoys doing repetitive work. And so giving them the opportunity to participate in that journey is what eventually takes you from scale to transform. So I think those are the three things that we see. First, leadership. And it comes from all of us. It comes from us going back to our companies and really creating, a conversation, right? Creating, the ambition, the vision of what is possible, okay? The second one is governance. You can't do this, whack-a-mole. It has to be done with some vision of of the governance side of it, how it all comes together. And the third is the organization has to embrace it. It cannot be a top-down thing. And the organization has to embrace it. They have to understand the tool. They have to understand its capabilities, how the different tools work together, and how they can participate in that journey. So that's my view.
So just to touch on, and before we go to Bruce, we heard in the presentation in the keynote yesterday morning the whole fight or flight response, right? What I'm actually hearing is it doesn't have to be either. It's embrace.
Absolutely. If the organization doesn't embrace it, you're not going to reach scale and transformation. It'll just be an interesting side project. I mean, anybody here, if you're here, you're probably with a fairly significant organization. Deploying 5, 10, 20, 50 bots, it's just an interesting experiment. It's a failure, frankly. I mean, the reason we're all sitting in this room is because we think we can transform the workplace, because we can, over time, deploy hundreds, maybe thousands of bots. Okay, and we can really transform our business processes, make our companies more agile, more responsive, improve service levels, drive costs down. Okay, and to do that, you're not going to do it with 10 or 20 or 50. And so the challenge for all of us is to embrace it and drive it in a way bigger way. Okay, and so that's really to me what it leads to a change and can make this go. So,
Bruce.
Thank you. That was a good summary. I think one of the things that, as you look at your sponsorship within your business, you have to look to the high-value tasks that are really going to be transformative to get that off the ground. And thinking about what Jen said earlier, they took on a high-value, high-risk task, and they made a breakthrough. And now they're sponsored by 60 different processes across the business. So one of the things that we're doing at Blue Prism is really focusing on those high-value tasks for enterprises that create the breakthrough and create the alignment within the organization. This leads to things like the contact center and what's happening within the enterprise, where the value proposition is not just about saving resources, but it's about transforming customer experience. So think about the areas of your business that are transformative. Get that sponsor and that leader that's going to drive that capability to really make a breakthrough, and that will then drive that focus forward. So, thanks.
Maybe just a quick comment. I mean, I certainly agree when it comes to high-value things. The thing we're finding with our biggest customers right now, and these are customers that are deploying tens and in some cases hundreds of thousands of bots, is that at the end of the day, the point is made around democratization, and I think that's an incredibly important point. If I take a look, I'm going to use PwC as an example, because they're one we call out a lot. That, there's almost 200,000 bots being deployed there. And that organization has realized that the only way of making this real is to get to the point where they have digital transformers in the business at scale. So they've gone out and their center of excellence is really an education entity to drive significant scale with people that want to change the business within the business. And so what they've created is almost 10,000 people in their organization that they call digital transformers. These are people that sit in individual divisions, departments. They understand the technology, they understand what they can do with it, and they understand how transformative it is, and they're responsible for educating and creating value within their own organizations as part of scale. Otherwise, this thing will never scale. You know, we look at it and go and say, if you only focus on high-value processes, you get the ability to get buy-in, but you don't necessarily get the ability to scale. And at the end of the day, the organizations that are doing this in the most significant way agree that they have to really create a new level of democratization, and that's just going to take time. It doesn't come overnight. It takes an enormous amount of effort. Rob pointed something out earlier. He talks about the social impact. The social impact of this is huge. It isn't just a technology impact. All of us have got to make our technology easier to use, simpler, more pervasive. We've got to do all those things. But at the same point in time, the social element of this is absolutely critical. Otherwise, we won't get to the point where we're scaling to millions of automations, which is where this needs to go.
I'm too old to BS anymore.
Sorry, what was that, Rob?
I'm too old to BS. I'm like your drunk uncle at Thanksgiving. If you think that everyone's going to change, you're fooling yourself. My wife was a buyer and a planner in retail. She worked for a little company called Sears. She worked for another little company called Macy's. And Sears clearly didn't adapt, and it doesn't appear that Macy's is going to be able to adapt either, and many others are going to suffer the same fate. And it's your culture, it's your DNA. The gentleman from Microsoft had a big acronym that I was looking at backwards behind a cow. That's something, this is how we've always done it. And I think those organizations that are going to survive, I don't think they have a technology challenge. I think there's a lot of smart people here that really understand technology. I think the companies that are going to survive are going to have leadership that changes the culture, because you can't just democratize technology without everybody understanding why you're doing it, what their part is going to be in it, and where are you going, and what is your part in that journey. And I don't think most people in most organizations are thinking in that regard. So I think in the long term, most companies fail, and I think we're at the precipice of seeing a whole bunch more companies fail if they don't respond to the automation imperative that is in front of them, and it is a social, cultural challenge, not a technology challenge.
Oh, really? Yep.
Wow. Was it the sort of swearing? Is that what?
Nice to see you brought your team with you, Rob, this week.
Am I going to be invited back?
So, full disclosure, this next question isn't prepped, but as I'm sitting here thinking, and we're running out of time, and I would hope that there's questions for this awesome panel. Let's end with 2 comments for each of you. And it's like the presidential debate. I'm going to time. Everyone has a timer, right? First is, give me a prediction. And Rob, this should be easy for you because this is what you get paid to do. One prediction, where are we going to be as a community in 5 years? And second, not for you, Rob, but for the other gentleman, let's put you on the spot. 30 seconds on what we have. Look, you guys have broken away, right? There's 3 clear leaders in the industry. Okay, doesn't matter who was there first or what. We have 3 here now. Obviously, from a Bizagi perspective, we see ourselves as like in the Jetsons, we're the super information highway. We love all the cars on there equally, okay? So we've got 3 different organizations. What does not make you different, but just what are you excited about that your organization is doing differently? So prediction first, and then we'll pass over to the other gentleman.
So those of you who've read my research, again, drunk uncle's back, much of it is wrong, right? And if I was really, really good at this, I would be in Gustavo's chair, not down here. But I do think, what's the 5-year time horizon?
Yeah, 3 to 5 years. Where are we at? I mean, because the last 3 years has changed dramatically.
In 5 years, we're going to see companies that are operating in a fundamentally different way, and we're going to see new competitors that have entered the market in ways that are as disruptive as what we've seen from Amazon, and we're going to be thinking about automation as, I think every company, I think this prediction that every company is going to be a software company. If you aren't a software company in 5 years, you will be gone, I think.
So you were here yesterday, and I put up the stat, wasn't my information, the Credit Suisse report of in the next 10 years, half of the S&P 500 will turn over if they don't digitize. Do you fully agree with that?
I fully agree, absolutely.
If not sooner, maybe.
Without a doubt.
Rob's pretty much said it all. I think that, I think from us, each one of us are going to be in a different place 5 years from now. Today we talk as, our company, Prism, AutomationAnywhere, about the term RPA. RPA will disappear in the way that people think about it today. Everything will change. We are not focused on building the world's best RPA company. We're focused on transforming ourselves from being an organization that today is about, a category that is growing in a significant way for each one of us, to something that changes people's lives. And what that means is that we need to innovate and change and evolve our technology to be able to support the fact that, to Rob's point, people are going to, every one of you are going to become software companies. That means that the role for us becomes a different type of role compared to what it is today. And that's kind of how we see it. We're also going to be in new spaces. We've already identified that there are 4 or 5 major new categories for us to get into as a company that we will tackle over the next 2 to 3 years that are completely untapped today. And those are multi-billion-dollar categories in their own right. So this isn't staying where it is today. I talk about the world of your grandmother's RPA. Today, what RPA vendors have is your grandmother's RPA. The world of RPA next year and beyond that will change everything in so many ways.
So it'll become so pervasive that our kids will never use the term RPA because it will just be.
Yeah, I don't think people care. I mean, I think ultimately they just don't. With all due respect to the analyst community, the reality is they have to have categories. But today, people don't really care. Our customers don't care whether they're solving an automation problem with an RPA technology, a DPA technology, a BPM technology, a low-code technology. They just want to know that they can get the outcome. And Rob talked about outcomes as being the critical thing. And when it comes to these transformational initiatives, outcomes are everything.
As long as it's an acronym, because it has to be an acronym. Otherwise, it doesn't count, okay? Bruce.
IPA.
To put a vision around that, I think the way that we see this is the digital workforce is a third resourcing option. And if you think about the world of BPO and how that's come up into many enterprises as a part of the fabric of an enterprise, we believe that the digital workforce is literally a third resourcing option that can get you to change the business and have those incredible business outcomes that are going to be necessary for survival. The other thing I think that will actually happen in 5 years is the idea of AI will become real. And we need tools like RPA and intelligent automation. It ultimately leads to this actionable intelligence that was just spoken about in the last presentation, because AI today is too broad. The capabilities that we're talking about make that real, and they make that real because we can be the arms and the legs while the AI is the brain. And you need to have that in your enterprise to be able to realize the value of that actionable intelligence. So that will happen over those years. Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce.
So some predictions, which will be pretty obvious, I think. First is we won't be attending RPA conferences or anything like that. It's, RPA is where back in the 90s, we went to, like trade shows on the internet and things like that. So, the business process automation will change and transform. So what you'll see in your companies, if you don't have it already, is you'll have, leaders that are doing digital transformation with, very clear metrics and measurements. There'll be expected returns. Measurements will be, people will be held accountable, including vendors, for what returns they provide to your companies in your transformation projects. These will be very high visibility projects. You can expect to be held accountable as leaders, and if you're participating in these projects, which I hope you will. I think that the opportunity to drive massive value in these companies, in your companies, is going to become very evident, and so the accountability and the measurements will become very tight. And that's happening already, but it's going to take on kind of a force of its own in companies. So that's one prediction. I think for the vendor space, I think there's massive innovation. I think the companies you see here will become very large players. There's so much space for the companies here to grow and differentiate and develop into very valuable companies in their own right, doing a number of different things. So my prediction is, I came into this space from the cybersecurity space, and a little anecdote. So when I sold my previous company, there were 864 companies in the cybersecurity space at that time. In the RPA space, there's really only 3 players. And so think about a space this large where you only have 3 companies. And so there's, really kind of a wonderful opportunity for vendors and for new vendors to come in and innovate. So I think you're going to see this whole business process area and digital transformation evolve into a major industry in its own right within the next 5 years. I think those would be my 2 predictions.
Gustavo, predictions, and this is a very humble and diplomatic panel. I was looking for a bit more excitement, to be honest. But I guess the opportunity is. What I also hear is the opportunity is so massive, and where it's such a nascent, early, still part of that adoption and journey that it sounds like everyone's excited about the opportunity to help all of our customers. Do you see it differently, or what's your perspective?
No, I think I see it the same way as Rob. It's such a fundamental technology that many companies will understand it and apply it, and the ones that don't won't exist. I mean, if that's the biggest existential threat you can imagine. Having said that, during the course of these 2 days, we have some discussions with some customers that got me thinking a lot. There is a big difference between automating your existing operations and creating a digital company. There are 2 fundamental different things. And if you want to design a digital company, it's the automation, our automation, your automation, while helping you, enabling that kind of thinking process, is such an a huge intellectual endeavor to think, okay, how do we define the company? When we say every company is a software company, actually at the back of that sentence is, how do I redesign this company to become a digital company? And by digital, I don't mean automatic. Operating, design, and looking into the future as a digital company. So maybe I went a little bit off-piste, but I think that's one of the big things to think about, because we can automate the existing operations, or we can redesign the company to be a digital organization. And those are, in my mind, completely different things.
Yeah, no, it's very well, and we had a great meeting with Old Mutual about that this afternoon. So we've got a whole bunch of other questions here, but conscious of time, we've got a great panel up here, industry leaders. Any questions from the audience? Or comments, debates, fun facts, jokes?
Let me see if I can get this question out of my brain correctly. Do you think it'll be hard for companies to realize the potential of artificial intelligence without digitizing their processes and implementing RPA solutions? Or do you think the implementation and benefits you can get from AI will be completely separate from what you guys are providing to the industry? Does that make sense?
Maybe let me recap just to see if we've got is AI possible without intelligent automation and vice versa, kind of? Or?
Yeah, can you really get the benefits of what's coming in artificial intelligence without digitizing your business processes and implementing RPA solutions?
Maybe I'll just take a stab at that. I think that we see some really interesting dynamics today within our customers, and over time this will change. The first one is that today there is this philosophy within many of our customers, especially with AI centers of excellence, I use that term, that it essentially is all about this idea of saying AI is almost like a new form of analytics. It's essentially taking analytics and data intelligence and taking it to a new level. The problem that we find with that today when we sit down and talk to customers is that getting insight into something without being able to actually do something about it is actually not particularly interesting. And so at the end of the day, the other big problem that almost every one of our customers have today is the fact that the gap between the world of the data scientist, the guy who does the AI stuff, and people who are actually landing AI in meaningful applications is huge. And today, the only people that really have some way of solving that is a traditional professional developer who's bought into the middle of this. What you end up doing with that is you create siloed AI applications. And that becomes a real problem, because over time, this thing will just create more and more and more problematic silos that already are the problem in our application domain space today. And so there is no doubt about the fact that if you don't land these AI-centric technologies into real business process-centric automations that can change the company from a digital point of view, all you're doing is just leveraging AI as just another technology to solve another siloed problem.
May I pile on? So just really quickly, one of the things that everybody here has in common, except for me, is all these guys are solving the problem of what's happening in your business. They're giving you transparency into what's going on in your business. And without transparency, without the data that sits behind it, without the visibility, there isn't going to be any real transformative thing that happens with AI. That's part, I think, of what you were saying when you say fundamental digitization is different, Gustavo.
Yep.
Yep.
Anyone else, or?
I was going to say, I love the explanation, and the simple way I would say it is RPA is the arms and legs to any kind of judgment engine or intelligence engine, and so without the arms and legs, you're nowhere, and so that's really just, it's that simple. So,
you know, one of the things I think about is, do we get to a point where there's too much information and it's not actionable?
Yeah, I think as part of the AI science of being able to put these data lakes together, you do have to discern what is valuable. And of course, that's a lot about the meta tagging. And so one of the valuable ways that we can be the arms and legs in this ecosystem is we're gathering the data and helping those data scientists find all the data they can't touch to make that data is making it intelligent and actionable before it's ingested into this data lake. So I think that's a big role of AI and RPA in supporting AI. I was talking with an interviewer from the San Francisco Chronicle about this, and they said they're hiring a bunch of people to go find and tag, meta tag data as a resourcing option. They're trying to hire contractors to do this. This is a perfect opportunity to create automation, because why not do that with a robust, scalable digital workforce? But it was all about creating massive scale in terms of sourcing information and meta tagging it. Perfect way to be the arms and legs of AI.
Great question. Thank you for opening it up. Anyone else have something?
What role do you see?
It's the Scotsman.
Yeah.
Slow it down, mate.
What role do you see the human touch playing in organizations when engaging with customers?
Oh, it's interesting that we know from the customer experience vendors that deal with that in successful organizations that the customer touch with a real live human is essential to differentiation and success. And that level of automation is really empowering those front office salespeople or contact center workers to provide a better customer experience by taking away all of the manual process that takes their customer experience away. So when we talk about chatbots and all the technologies that are used, ultimately those technologies are to drive a faster interaction with the human process to get to that level of differentiation. I know when I'm flying and I call United Airlines, I go immediately to the top of the queue and I have a human contact center agent helping me. It's the best part about the experience. But that's because they know exactly what I'm calling about, why I'm calling about it, and that agent knows that they can automate all the processes to keep my interaction very short and right to the point. It's all about the outcome. So this technology is a key enabler to providing that vision.
yeah, this is, we just made an acquisition of a company precisely to enable this kind of capability where the bot interacts almost seamlessly with the human that's having the interaction with the customer. And, making that interaction, the human touching the customer back to the bot as seamless but very well structured as possible is actually quite key.
I would add a little bit to reflect on the presentation from Andy Welch yesterday in the way by automating and eliminating all these repetitive activities, you're enable humans to actually develop in what makes a human human. So all this empathy, creativity that you can unleash, which will become the main differentiator for the business again, because the repetitive stuff has been dealt with. So I think humans still will make the difference.
Well, I mean, I hope so. Otherwise, we're all in trouble. I mean, I was going to make a joke, Bruce, that you only get your call answered because you fly United so much that you.
That's right.
But let me take that joke to reality, which is the human touch also a possible differentiator based on, revenue of customer, importance? Do you see the human touch being perhaps a differentiator?
Oh, clearly, yeah.
Because I know I still get frustrated when I get the bots, and I'm American Airlines, and I'll just go agent, 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 and if you say it 4 times really fast in an Australian accent, you go through to an agent. So I'm breaking their system, right? I'd like them just to know that it's Richard, and I should just get my phone call answered. But I don't know. I'm just thinking, as myself, would I be willing to pay more in the short term whilst we go through that transition? I mean, to Rob's point, our kids are going to know no different, right? It will be the Jetsons. But for now, do you see that as a differentiator?
I think that, I think the comment was made earlier on around the role these technologies play in sort of augmenting and essentially creating a better human interaction experience than, so there's no doubt about that, both in front of the human as well as behind the human. But I think at the end of the day, every one of us just needs to take into account the fact that people really do want to interact with people, but only in the context of where the relationship is already in place, whether that's understood through some technology or whether it's done in a different way. The other thing that becomes really, really important is people want to interact with skilled human people.
Yes.
And so part of the challenge here is when you have someone sitting in a contact center, you're not always clear about the fact that that particular person is always going to have the same level of engagement with you that you would expect, because some people are highly skilled to have this engagement and others are not. And so, we see that, again, these technologies are designed to sort of start leveling the playing field and creating ways of being able to have a better generalized experience, even with people that may not necessarily be quite as skilled. And that's important. People want to work with people. Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Our expectations are changing pretty rapidly. To your comment yesterday about instantaneous, our expectations are going through the roof now. And you get through to a call center agent, and my biggest pet peeve is you've already entered in all the information and they answer the phone. Oh, hi, sorry, what's your name? And can you give me your social? And I'm like, I just did this. So expectations are changing dramatically.
I think we're all going to be replaced by robots. I think that the doomsday. No, I don't think that. But I do think there was a company called Amazon, which we've mentioned a couple of times during the course of a day, and there was a lot of companies that looked at the crutch of saying they can never do what we do. They never have the people in the stores with the green aprons on and people, and that you can't build a brand and you can't build a relationship if you don't have a lot of human touch. And the answer is oftentimes you can't. So I think part of that governance model that you're looking at when you're saying, well, how do we handle certain parts of our process end to end, is to understand where humans are invaluable. And there's going to be many points where they are, but don't use the crutch of saying we're going to be the company that's face to face while our competitor automates. Because I think what we'll find is that automation is very alluring. It's very seductive to the market.
We have a customer, a customer here in that runs a large network of bank branches, and they, through their center of excellence, they went out and identified 9 different processes running at bank branches that could be automated. When they automated it, they ended up saving hundreds of thousands of man hours. Now, that time was time that very valuable, highly paid front office employees could use to deal with real customer service issues instead of these processes that could have been that are now being performed by robots. So the impact of this, by the way, it's they've measured this very carefully, and it's not just had a customer service improvement impact, but it's had a huge return on investment in that the productivity in terms of selling new services and products went up dramatically over the course of the last year. So So, this is happening now. It's not just, big airlines in the United States, but also, customers throughout the Latin America region that are implementing this in their businesses. Yep.
I think there's just one other point I'll make. We're fortunate enough to have an incredibly large business in a place like Japan. It represents about 27% of our business with, almost 16,000 customers. Sorry, 1,600 customers in Japan and growing at a crazy rate. What's really interesting that we started to find is that some of the dynamics of Japan, AKA, the working population is decreasing. Millennials don't stay in Japan, they leave Japan. All of those aspects. And the fact that in most of our Japanese customers today, there's a concept of a chief happiness officer. It's a really interesting thing that has created a dynamic where people want to actually come to work feeling comfortable and satisfied with the job that they are doing. And in fact, from a millennial point of view, there's enough research out there that says millennials, in fact, will take a much lower salary in order to be happier in the job that they do if you can give them a job that makes sense. Yeah. And the only way to do that is to facilitate those kind of engagements with technology in ways that create this level of interaction. And so there are all sorts of really interesting social aspects that are changing the fabric of the way that every one of our customers works today and every one of our organizations work today. And those are just things that are incredibly important to keep in mind, because otherwise it's really easy to get lost in this technology world.
Awesome. Look, I think the one prediction we all agree on is that automation is here, automation is happening, and I think it's incredibly exciting, and you can hear the passion from the panel, because I think what's incredibly exciting for all of us, and we should remember this is as big, if not bigger, than the last revolution we had, which was the Industrial Revolution. And the fact that we all get to be a part of that transformation is pretty darn exciting. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.